Welcome to lecture number 5, in which we are going to discuss force and potential energy. In fact, in the previous class itself, we started a little bit. So what did we do in the previous class? We said that we talked about the harmonic potential, okay, and that was given as this. Potential is half kx square, and that is called harmonic potential. It looks like parabola if you plot. But in the real situation, the potential will be not that easy. It can be very complicated. And this blue curve is the potential for the carbon dioxide molecule. Around the equilibrium, we try to approximate here, and then if you see that it is close to equilibrium position, you can approximate to be harmonic potential. But if you move away from this equilibrium position, this is going to deviate from the harmonic potential. Harmonic potential is very well-known potential in physics, and it is quite useful. And it is easy to solve many problems, but if you consider the real potential, it's really very difficult to solve, and then you have to rely on the numerical method, not analytically. So let's go ahead with this harmonic potential and how do we do approximation. So here is, again, I'm saying this blue curve is harmonic potential and x naught is the equilibrium position. The equilibrium position means the minimum here, the potential slope is 0. And any kind, you know that any kind of function can be expanded in terms of Taylor series. Okay, any kind of differentiable function at some point can be expanded to in terms of Taylor series expansion. And this expansion is given as this, where, for example, if I want to expand this blue curve, which is potential for the diatomic molecule carbon dioxide, if I want to expand this potential around equilibrium position, which is x is equal to x naught, what I have to do is it is like u x naught, the potential at position x naught, plus the derivative u prime x naught into x minus x naught. And what is u prime x? It is the derivative of the potential with respect to x. What is going to be the higher term? This higher term will be 1 by factorial 2 u double prime x naught. What is meaning of that? U double prime x is double derivative of potential with respect to x. And if you are saying u double prime x naught means double derivative at this point. And so on, okay? This is the second order. O means order, 3 means 3, here order 3 and so on, okay? Order 4, order 5 and so on, you can go ahead. Here order 3 will be 1 by 3 factorial u triple prime x naught into x minus x naught whole cube, if you are putting here. So in this way you can expand. We are talking about expansion around equilibrium position, which is here, x is equal to x naught. Hence, I mean, this expansion is true for any point. If it is, for example, if you want to expand x is equal to x1, which is here, you can do so. I mean, there is no problem. Here it will be u x1, u prime x1, x minus x1. But we are expanding here you are expanding at x is equal to x naught, which is equilibrium position. And for the equilibrium position, we know that the force happen to be 0, and the relation between force and potential is derivative. Okay, so F is equal to du by dx. So it means that here the first derivative will be 0. Okay. We can assume that ux prime to be 0. This is just a reference point. Okay, you can easily make this one to be 0 without any change in the outcome of the problem or solution. There is no problem. You can always choose the reference point x naught to be 0. The Taylor series, you might have heard this one, the word Taylor series for first time, but I'm sure that you have used this kind of expansion in 10+2 many times. For example, if you have used this function expansion of e to the power x like this, sine x like this, cos x like this, and so on, which is basically here this is expansion around x is equal to 0. Okay, here you are expanding x is equal to 0. If you want to expand around x is equal to 1 here, then you can have similar similar thing here, that you have to get the derivative at that point, and x minus a and so on. So this is well known Taylor series expansion. So the harmonic potential, it is exactly the same, but now I have lifted the baseline and I have made that the potential at x is equal to x naught is 0. There is no change after that. So what is the outcome? This potential is, since I have made u x naught to be 0, and at equilibrium the first term was already 0 because that is the definition of the equilibrium. This first term I made it 0 by shifting the reference point, saying that this is the reference point for potential. U prime x naught is going to be 0 because this is equilibrium. So we are going to start with this term. Okay. So here we are going to have half 2 factorial u double prime x naught x minus x naught whole square plus higher order terms. Okay. Higher order terms. And if I am approximating, that we are not very far away from equilibrium position, so this potential can be approximated as harmonic potential. So if I am moving only this much, so you can see that this harmonic potential is overlapping with the blue curve. You see, if I say that what is the behavior of this blue curve potential if I move very small distance from x naught, so you see that pictorially also it is overlapping. And you can approximate as a parabola. Quantitatively, if you want to talk, then you can always write this potential as like this. And why are we doing so? Because we know that the harmonic potential is given like this. So basically u double prime x naught is related with this k. K is the spring constant you are talking. So here u double prime x naught is the spring constant. Thus the frequency of vibration about the equilibrium can be approximated as this. So this is also many times it is called small oscillation. Okay, if we consider that the amplitude of oscillation is very small, then this approximation holds true. Even for the pendulum, you remember that there was the theta double dot was coming as sine theta, and then you said that, okay, consider very small amplitude. So theta basically, sorry, theta double dot was coming as 1 minus cos theta and so on. And then you said that, okay, theta can be small, so you approximated a small value and you expanded this cos theta as 1 minus theta square by 2. And it was coming like a harmonic oscillator. But if your oscillation is big, theta is big, then certainly it is going to deviate from the parabola. It is going to deviate from the harmonic oscillation behavior, and that is called nonlinear oscillation and so on. So that we are not going to talk about. So the whole idea is our displacement is very small, okay, and in that case we can approximate this potential to be harmonic, and then we can get harmonic oscillation. For two particles, the frequency of vibration is given as omega under k by mu, and here mu is just reduced mass, where we write reduced mass like m1 m2 divided by m1 plus m2, where m1 and m2 are the masses of two which are attached to the spring and so on. So this is another example which I'm going to present, and that's called harmonic approximation to Morse potential. And this is a model for diatomic molecule. Okay, and this looks like this. The potential really, it looks like this. Okay, this Morse potential. Here you see that at x is equal to x naught, the potential is 0. Okay, here we have put, if you put x is equal to x naught, this will become 0. E to the power 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. At u infinitive, okay, x is equal to infinitive, you say here, this becomes 0, and then u is t. Okay. D is also called dissociation energy in the case of Morse potential, and this is the energy which is required to break the molecule. Okay, this is the energy. If you supply this much energy, the molecule will be broken because they move infinite distance from each other and they don't feel any potential. Okay. Okay. I mean, so there is at infinite, they move to infinite, and then there is no force which can act between them. So this is called dissociation energy. Okay, if you want to approximate this potential, which is given of this form, to the harmonic potential, considering the displacement from the equilibrium is small, you can do so. Okay, but you can also see that find the equilibrium position first, and you can see that in order to find the equilibrium position, if you are given some potential and if you have to find the equilibrium position, the first thing you do is your first derivative should be 0. The point where the first derivative is 0 is called the equilibrium position. Okay. So here you see we are doing the first derivative and then we can find it to be 0, and this gives us x is equal to x naught. So I am doing the simple derivative here, and then I have to find that for what value of x this term should be 0. Okay, and this is when it is x is equal to x naught, this becomes 0, this becomes 1, and this is 1 minus 1 is 0. Okay. Now we have to find that for this small displacement, what kind of restoring force or a spring constant. Rather, I should be talking in terms of a spring constant. What is the spring constant for this potential? Okay, around the equilibrium for a small distance. Okay, so you have to do the double derivative here and then put the value of x is equal to x naught. And at equilibrium, you will find that this is your spring constant. And then oscillation around the equilibrium will be given as alpha 2d by mu. Okay, so that's how these molecules are going to be oscillating. Okay. So this depends upon what is the dissociation energy, mu is the reduced mass, and alpha is another parameter which is appearing here. Okay. So it is possible that you are given some kind of potential and somebody asks that what will be the frequency of oscillation for a small oscillation. Okay, what will be the frequency for a small oscillation? In that case, you have to approximate, you have to find the spring constant K, and then you will be able to do rest of the things. Now let's talk about work and potential energy for 2D and 3D motion. And here is the example that we are having one positive charge, another negative charge, and potential energy will be the function of x and y. For example, in 2D, it depends what is the positions of these particles. Okay, so it depends. So this one you can treat as origin, and then you can, or any of them you can treat as a origin, and then you can calculate the potential energy. And you can see that potential energy is quite useful. It is useful to find the equilibrium position, and then from the potential itself, you will be able to find the spring constant and so on. You don't have to even talk about the force and so on. It's once you have derived the expression for the potential, that's it. Well, I mean, what is the relation between what is work and what is potential energy? Let's talk about this. So, what is work? I mean, work is you are having one object and we are applying a force in this direction, and then there is displacement in the same direction. This is 1D motion. The displacement and force are along same line. So work done by the force will be dW is equal to F into dx, force into the small displacement. So this is the amount of work the force does if it moves if it moves a body from x to x plus dx. Well, work done by the particle will be minus dW because it is going to apply the force in opposite direction. And from the energy of the conservation is the work done by the particle is not going to in vain. It is going to be converted in the potential energy, and that is work done by the particle is equal to minus d omega is equal to change in its potential energy. And thus, we find the relation between the force and the potential energy. Force is basically the rate of change of the potential energy. Well, if this thing is not in 1D, it is in 3D, and you are not up, the displacement is not happening along the direction of the force, but it is happening at some angle, then we have to take a dot product between the force and the displacement. And for example, here in this case, if the displacement and the force, the angle between them is theta, then this is going to be F cos theta into dr. If you want to write this one in different form, it is F dot dr, force vector dot product displacement vector, and then we write like this. Can we write the force again in terms of potential? That is the question. And let's see how do we write that, okay, in 3D. In 2D, we know how to write this, but in 3D, 3 dimension, how do we write that? So let's proceed further, okay. The change in the potential energy is, again, I'm stating like this, which is, I think I have said many times by now. This is the same statement in different mathematical form. Okay, so du in 2D and 3D. So du is the change in the total change in the potential energy if we move from one position to another position. For example, this is the potential energy which is changing if we move from one position to another position. So rate of change of the potential energy is different in different direction. So for example, even in the first class, we discussed about the height of the hill, okay? And then height of the hill, if we move from one, it depends upon the direction, you know, and the rate of change of this height will be not same, okay? If we move along X direction and Y direction. Similarly, here is the case given for H2O bond, H2O molecule. And in vector form, we can write that initially we are here at XY position and we are moving X plus dx and Y plus dy in 2D, then this is our displacement. So total change of the potential energy as we derive it is similar to the height which was discussed in the first class. The total change of the potential energy is the rate of change of potential energy with respect to X and the amount of change we have made in X. Rate of change of the potential energy along Y and amount of change we have made along Y direction. Similarly, for 3D, you can extend and then it is going to be total change in the potential energy is going to be the rate of change of the potential energy along X direction and amount of change we have made along X direction plus rate of change of the potential energy along Y direction and amount of change we have made in Y coordinate, rate of change of potential energy along Z direction and amount of change we have made in Z coordinate. So this is how it is going to be the change in the potential energy. Well, again, I'm stating same thing here. The total change of the potential energy if I move from one point to another point. The first point is denoted as X, Y, and Z. Another point is having coordinate X plus dx, Y plus dy, and Z plus dz. The same expression can be written in this form. This is very nice form to write the same thing here. Now here I am writing in the vector form. And why I'm writing like this? Because we had written f dot dr, okay? And we are familiar with that this is dr. And then I want to write this on like this, okay? To get this one. So basically del u by del x, x cap plus del u by del y, y cap plus del u by del z, z cap into the displacement dr, vector dr, which is dx x cap, dy y cap plus dz z cap. Well, here I am doing some kind of rearrangement, and here I take out this y and treat this one as operator. This is called del operator. So this is del operator, which is operating at u into rather dot product with displacement vector. Del operator acting on a scalar quantity becomes a vector quantity. This is called a gradient. You will learn more in detail in PH 102, but here also we are introducing here without giving very detailed explanation and so on. But this is, again I'm repeating, this is a del operator which is called gradient, and then u. So gradient of any scalar quantity is a vector quantity here, and then we are going to do the dot product with the displacement vector. In order to write this, another way of writing this is this del operator is written like this. Okay, the vector here I am writing this arrow to denote that this del operator is a vector. Okay, so again del operator, which is a vector symbol, stands for the operator del, which is del by del x, x cap plus del y by del y, y cap plus del by del z, z cap. Del vector u denotes this operation is known as gradient of u. This is called gradient of u. Okay. Okay, so here what did we learn? I mean, it's exactly same thing. Du is, we know that minus f dot dr. This implies, okay, here minus f dot dr is equal to grade u dot dr. This implies that f is equal to minus gradient u. And so we can write del u by del x, gradient u is equal to del u by del x, x cap plus del u by del y, y cap plus del u by del z, z cap. Fx is equal to del u by del x and fy is equal to del y, del u by del y, and fz is equal to del u by del z. So what is the meaning of this? In colloquial, this is the mathematical form for. If you want to say this statement in English, what are you going to say? Fx is the x component of the force, which is equal to minus sign of the rate of change of the potential along x direction. Okay. Similarly, Fy is the y component of the force, which is equal to, with a minus sign, the rate of change of the potential along y direction. Okay. What is meaning of this? If I move along y direction, how this potential is changing? Okay, that is the meaning of rate of change of the potential along y direction. Fz is the z component of the force, which is equal to minus rate of change of the potential energy along z direction. Okay, this is the meaning of all these components. Well, so we have written the all these gradient formula and so on in the Cartesian coordinate, and let us move to little bit uncomfortable zone, and that is plane polar coordinate, and I want to write same thing here. What are we going to do? Well, potential is now function of r and theta, and by partial differentiation, okay, I am at position r and theta, and then I move to position r plus dr, theta plus d theta. How much potential is going to change? Well, according to the mathematical differentiation, du is del u by del r plus del u by del theta d theta. And then we can write this one in this format, del u by del r cap plus 1 by r del u by del theta cap into this is the vector. We know that this is the displacement vector. We have done this one in the when we were talking about the plane polar coordinate, the small dr vector, position vector we wrote r cap plus r theta cap. The small vector component, the small infinitesimal vector is written as dr r cap plus r d theta cap is equal to gradient of u dot dr. Okay. So what is meaning of that? So gradient of u in the plane polar coordinate can be written as this. Okay, that's how it is written. Okay. So what is the gradient? Here there are two orthogonal unit vectors. Okay, here r cap and theta cap similar to x cap and y cap. So rate of change of this potential energy when we are moving along r direction, rate of change of the potential energy when we are moving along theta direction. See here rate of change with distance, okay, and then this small distance will be r del theta. Okay, this one you have to be careful. This in the denominator both terms are having the dimension of length, and that's how it should be, right? Physically you are moving in distance, right, in the length. Okay, yeah, it will be clear further. So what is the change in the potential energy is the work done, which is minus f dot dr. It is having two components, f r cap plus f theta cap into the displacement, which is written like this. So what is the force along radial direction? The force along the radial direction is the rate of change of the potential energy along r direction. F theta is the rate of change of the potential energy when we are moving. We are changing theta by small amount, and then the length will be r d theta here. That's how it is written. Gradient in the cylindrical coordinate system. Again, I am going to do similar stuff. We know that in the cylindrical coordinate, the potential can be written as r, theta, and z. And if I want to do this mathematically, how it can be written, del u by del r, dr plus del u by del theta, d theta plus del u by del z, dz. What is the vector, small vector, if I move from r, theta, and z point to r plus dr, theta plus d theta, and z plus dz point? This small vector dr can be written as dr r cap plus r d theta cap plus dz dz z cap. This one we have derived when we were discussing the coordinate system. Then if you want to write this one like this, you have to make r cap. Here it was dr, so here it's fine. Del u by del theta, here it should be. Here r is coming, so I have to divide by r here. And so on here. Okay. So here if you write, this is the gradient of the potential, which becomes a vector quantity here, into the displacement vector, and hence the gradient in the cylindrical coordinate system is del u by del r, r cap plus 1 by r, del u by del theta, theta cap plus del u by del z, z cap. Again, procedure is similar, and then we can find what is the force along r direction at a given point is a rate of change of the potential energy with respect to r. So what is the rate of change of r with respect to the z axis distance? F theta is the rate of change if we move theta by del theta, but theta is not having length, and that length will be r d theta. So that's why here r is coming. Fz will be del u by del z. So these are the components. Okay. We know that the spherical polar coordinate system is the most complicated one, but the most useful one to handle the spherical coordinate, spherical symmetric problem. So let's talk about that. In the spherical polar coordinate system, we are writing potential as r, theta, and phi. Again, I'm going to follow the same procedure. The total change in the potential energy is given as del u by del r dr plus del u by del theta d theta plus del u by del phi d phi. We have to write in terms of vector, small vector, okay, which is telling us that what is the direction and magnitude of that vector if I move from the position r theta phi to r plus dr, theta plus d theta, and phi plus d phi. Then this is the vector which is written like this: dr is the dimension of length, r plus r d theta is the dimension of length, r sine theta d phi dimension of length, and phi cap. So these are the vectors, in the spherical coordinate system. And then if you have to match like this, dr r cap is going to give us the unity, and dr is going to be here, and so on. 1 by r del u by del theta, theta cap is going to be unity, But here is going to be extra term r, so that's why we have to divide here by r to cancel r sine theta here, because here r sine theta is appearing. So basically, what is the bottom line? The gradient of this potential in the spherical polar coordinate system is written like this: del u by del r cap plus 1 by r del u by del theta cap plus 1 by r sine theta del u by del phi cap. Force, again, the procedure is same. The bottom line is the force along r direction is given as Fr is equal to minus sign rate of change of the potential energy with respect to r, the rate of change of potential energy if we move theta plus d theta, the amount of length we are moving in the theta cap direction is r d theta. So that's the rate of change of the potential energy. So the force is F theta here, means that is the direction of the force. Similarly, the force along phi direction can be the amount of change which has happened because of the length change in the phi direction. The length change will be given as r sine theta del phi. Okay, that's fine. So up to now, we said that, all the work done will be converted to potential energy. This is true for certain extent, but not in all the cases. And this, when it is true, that in that situation, the force is called conservative force, where all the work done by the force, or work done by the particle, is converted to the potential energy. But it is not always true. For example, non-conservative forces, not all the work done is converted to the potential energy. So when we write the force is equal to minus grad U, we derived this one by considering the conservation of energy and so on. We consider the statement that the work done by the force is converted to the energy. But this is only true for the conservative force. And this formula, hence this formula is only true for the conservative force. Okay, that's fine. By the way, work done by all type of forces do not convert it to potential energy stored in the system. It may be lost by dissipation in the form of heat or sound, etc. These forces are called dissipative forces or non-conservative forces. The best example is friction. Okay. For example, if you are taking a block and you are moving from one position to another position, there is going to be the heat generated. Okay. And you have to work against that force. Doesn't mean that force is, that work done, whatever you have taken, is stored somewhere. This is not correct. So work done by the dissipative force is equal to dW is equal to F dot dr, which is not equal to the change in energy. And hence the conservation of energy and F is equal to minus grad U is not applicable to these non-conservative forces. Again, one interesting property of the conservative force is here. If it is conservative force, then you will be able to derive this force as a gradient of U. Okay? But not all kind of forces can be written in terms of this, as we discussed in the previous slide. Those forces which are derivable from the scalar potential are called conservative forces, but non-conservative forces cannot be written in terms of the gradient of the scalar potential. For example, here we are talking about work done due to motion from A to B. This is written as dW F dot dr, which is equal to minus grad U dot dr, which is equal to minus du. So thus, the work done for taking the particle from point A to B is simply the difference in the potential energy. That's all. If you know the potential, you are knowing that how if we move the particle under this potential, the work done will be UA minus UB, which is the potential energy difference between these 2 points. Okay, so again I want to do some little bit algebra and show you the conservation of total energy, and that is basically here the work done here F dot dr is equal to m dr by dt, so I divided by dt. Okay. Yeah, so here it is. This can be written as m dv by dt into dr. So what I have written here, F is equal to ma, okay, mass into acceleration and into dr. This is written as m dv by dt dot v into dt. Okay, this is the instantaneous velocity, and this can be written as half m t and sorry, I think I missed here the derivative. Okay, this is what I have. Oh, no, I have not missed anything here. Sorry. It's my mistake. Here dt and dt is gone, so it's fine. So here is equal to, this can be written as half md. Here it will become v dv dot v dot. So this can be written as half here dv dot v, and if you do v dot v, there will be two times here coming, and that will cancel with half. So basically this is m dv dot v vector will be equal to half m d v dot v, which is m dv square, and this is for the small portion of the displacement. And if you are going from the position A to B, you can integrate, and what is the outcome is half mv square minus half mv a square. So this is the work done, is the kinetic energy difference. And this is the basically change in the kinetic energy. Thus, UA minus UB, which we derive from this point, is equal to half mv b square minus half mv a square. And this tells that total energy is conserved. Here UA plus half mv a square is the total energy, kinetic energy plus potential energy is equal to the total energy here. So this is the conservation of energy, and this is only true for the conservative force. One of Another interesting point for the conservative force is the total work done, okay, from going from one position to another position doesn't depend upon the path you have chosen. Because you know that it only depends upon the work done for the conservative force depends upon the potential energy from here, a potential energy difference, potential between this and this, okay, UA minus UB. That's all. So it means that whatever path you take, it doesn't matter, okay? Whether you go from point A to point B using path E or path C or path D, the outcome is going to be UA minus UB. So the total work done is going to be path independent. So work done only depends on the potential energy at the end point A and B if the force is conservative. So the work done is path independent. Another interesting point is if you calculate the total work done by the force for the closed loop, then the total work done will be 0. Okay. And how it is possible? Well, the work done from going from A to B through a path C. So I'm going like A, C, B, and then coming back with B, D, A path. So total work done will be 0. Okay. This here close here means closed circle, the closed path. It is not circle, it can be any path, but the path should be closed. So if we are going A to B, this is the work done via path C. And then we have to do the total work done. We go like this and then come back with this. So the total work done is A to B, F dot dr, and then B to A, F dot dr through via path D. And then you see that the work done from going to here is UA minus UB, and then work done from coming from here to here is equal to UB minus UA. So it is basically the same statement that work done from going from, if it is only dependent upon the potential difference between first point and end point, then in the closed loop, the total work done will be 0. Another way of saying that is if we are moving from one position to another position, it is going to be the path independent. So alternative definition of the conservative force is force for which work done along a closed path is 0, or work done for a conservative force does not depend on the path, but only on the end point.